All right. So, I am starting a education series. So over the next 4 weeks or so, I'm going to go into different aspects of cycle syncing, like harnessing your period for performance, understanding like period problems and why they might be occurring, like how the symptoms could be telling you underlying problems. And then also doing another combo, or I guess, have a guest speaker. So Derek will join me for a Reiki tapping, kind of how trauma might be affecting cycle related issues, or essentially like how traumas could be causing behavioral issues, or how you view food, or just different ways it might be manifesting itself that could be causing period problems. So that will be the fourth week. So really, this is just about educating you guys on almost different parts of my journey into this and the different things that I found to be valuable, and kind of giving you guys little snippets into these so that you can apply that and use it yourselves. So for those of you that don't know me, I'm Jen Marker, nutrition coach, personal trainer. I have been a personal trainer for well over 10 years now, got into nutrition coaching probably 4 or 5 years ago now. And during that time, basically the way I got into it was I was doing CrossFit, definitely the I'll rest when I'm dead kind of mentality, like the more workouts, better results, which was not the case. Like, don't eat carbs or they'll make you fat. Don't eat fats, they'll make you fat. Like, don't take a rest day. Basically a hot mess. And it wasn't until I got a nutrition coach myself, and he was like, you're under eating. I had a history of binging and then over exercising and restricting. So it wasn't until he was like, hey, like, I'm going to make you eat more. I'm going to make you eat more carbs. And it wasn't until then when I actually did it, and all of a sudden, all the injuries that I had, because God knows I had numerous injuries, they started to get better. I started to get stronger. I started to get better at CrossFit, and I started to feel better. And then I also got leaner in the process. So it was like this magic, and lit a fire under my ass to help others, because prior to that point, I'd gotten my personal training certifications, but they don't teach you much in regards to nutrition in that. So, as a new personal trainer, I looked at magazines, and, the girl on the cover of the magazine was talking about how she had a 1,200 calorie diet, and that's what she did to get in cover model shape or whatever. So I had clients that it was like, oh yeah, 12, 14, 1,600 calories. And I was like, I felt like a bad person. I was like, oh my God, I am someone that's an authority in this. I've told people to eat calories as low as like 12, 1,400 calories. And, not understanding that you needed to appropriately reverse your diet when going to low calorie points. But in reality, like, you probably shouldn't get that low in the first place. So anyways, essentially it lit a fire under my ass to help people and undo the wrongs that were out there as far as those low calorie diets and that restrictive mindset. And in that process, got my level 1 nutrition coaching, level 2 hormone specialist, mindset specialist. I worked with numerous mentorship coaches like Lori King, like Sam Miller Science, like Travis Zipper. And, it was working with Lori that, I was talking to her, and I was like, yeah, I don't have a period. And at that point, I had been off birth control. I had been on birth control for probably 15 years prior to that point, and hadn't had a period for most of that time. And, as a female, I was like, well, whatever, this is no big deal. Like, went to the doctor, and my doctor was just like, oh, well, do you want to have a period? And what woman is going to be like, yeah, I want to have a period. Like, God, I can't wait to have that bleed every month. So, my doctor was like, okay, well, if it's not a problem for you, it's not a problem for me. And essentially we won't worry about it. Not really informing me of what the importance of my hormones was, why it was important for me to have estrogen, and why it was important for me to have progesterone, and why it was important for me to ovulate every month. So when I was talking to Lori, I, was talking to her and I was like, hey, like, I don't get a period. She's like, that's a problem. I was like, yeah, I guess it is. And, we worked on getting my period back, and we used some supplementation, like increased fiber, hydration, like changed activity a little bit, and I got my period back. And I was like, oh, yay. Okay. So, at the time, I wasn't super excited about it, but I knew I needed it. And I started noticing differences in the way I felt throughout the month, differences in my performance throughout the month. And I was like, hey, there's something to this. So I started looking up and looking into the importance of estrogen and progesterone and why it was necessary for me to have these hormones, and what kind of benefits, and how could I optimize these, and how could I maximize these? Because as someone that was doing CrossFit, that was something that I loved. And if you talk to most people, because stress is so prevalent for most people, they'll tell you to reduce or get rid of the stressful activities. And for me, that wasn't an option, because I was competing in CrossFit and I was like, I'm not giving up my CrossFit. Like, I love doing this. So what I looked for is, where could I optimize doing CrossFit? When was my body more receptive to it versus when it wasn't? Because with CrossFit, like, things are constantly varied. So having, all those different, like, low intensity and high intensity was important. So that was kind of where I started looking more into the importance of the hormones. And I will talk more about performance in your period next week in next week's presentation. But today I'm going to go over just kind of the basic understanding of cycle syncing, like our hormones, why it's important to have them, and then go into some things in regards to menopause and how we can cycle sync during menopause as well. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and start this presentation. Before I start, anybody have any initial questions, anything that you really want to learn today or during these 4 weeks? Anybody? You can put them in the chat, or you can save them till the end. It's up to you.
I'm just curious, because there's so much to this.
Yes.
Is kind of, where do you begin? And maybe that will happen as you talk, but I think it's, where do you begin on focusing on one thing and then moving on to the next? Because there's so much to it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I would say, as with anything, just begin, like, one thing. So, like seed cycling, something that is a good starter, or just tracking your food and tracking cravings and hunger. Like, that's a good point. So, it depends on where you think you will be strongest to start. Like, for example, like with programs, I will have potentially 2 sets of macros. So one set that someone will use during the follicular phase and one set that someone will use during the luteal phase. Now, if someone's not super comfortable with macros to begin with, I'll probably have just a straight set of macros that they follow, and then we'll work to adjust thereafter. And then we'll implement things in regards to just food choices, like, hey, I want to make sure that you have these food choices during the follicular phase and these food choices during the luteal phase. And then maybe it's something like, okay, I'm going to have you use more of your fats for seeds for seed cycling during, this phase and that. So it's really kind of a piecing together process based off of someone's comfort and like how good they feel about applying certain techniques. So we start small and we just add things in. All right, cool. So let's go ahead and start this presentation. All right, so I'm gonna end up, if you guys have any questions during this, let me know. You can put them in the chat or just kind of unmute and, ask me to go over something or repeat something, or if you have a question about something, just let me know. Okay. Great. All right. So the cycle connection presents syncing with your cycle. So learning to sync with your monthly hormone fluctuations to optimize the unique opportunities presented during each part of your monthly cycle and phases of life. So the cycle connection is learning to sync with your cycle and understanding the unique opportunities presented during each phase of the monthly cycle. Learning this allows you to take advantage of these hormones to harness them for better muscle and strength gains, fat loss, and easier pain-free cycles and periods. Learning to sync with your cycle gives you the knowledge you can also use to your advantage when it comes to planning meetings, projects, and outings, as well as crushing daily habits and routines. Your hormones are a blessing, not a curse. What we were told is a weakness is actually a strength. Women are often taught to be ashamed of their hormones, like it's some sort of curse or disadvantage, or a weakness they were unfortunately born with. In high school, there is minimal education around how beautiful and amazing a woman's monthly cycle is. We're taught to whisper and hide something that every woman gets. Men are quote unquote grossed out by it. So it somehow becomes our job to hide it. We do diets, exercises, and workout schedules that are designed, or work schedules that are designed and researched to primarily support the male body, and then feel like it's something we're doing wrong as to why we can't keep up, stick with it, or have the same kind of results. What if there was a way to harness the power and the opportunity that these hormone fluctuations actually present? No longer do you need to be quiet about the pain you feel or ignore the messages your body is telling you. Instead, you can actually use this knowledge of your hormones to take advantage of the opportunities presented during each phase of your monthly cycle, setting you up for success moving into the different phases of your life, like menopause. By learning to complement your cycle with your mindset, nutrition, and activity, you can actually achieve better results in everything you do. This is your way to no longer feel like you need to hide or whisper about your period, because it becomes one of your strengths, not a weakness. This is what learning how to utilize the cycle connection and syncing with your cycle can create for you. So, understanding your hormones to understand how to harness them for opportunity. So we're going to talk about the follicular phase, which is the first phase of your cycle, the luteal phase, which is the last phase of your cycle, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, perimenopause, and menopause. So first of all, let's take a look at what hormone fluctuations look like throughout the month. So we can see based on this graph that we've got estrogen that rises and peaks at ovulation. It then has a drop off leading into the luteal phase, and then has a slightly lesser rise during the luteal phase, and then drops off at your period. During the luteal phase, progesterone is the primary hormone. So we see progesterone rise during the luteal phase, and it peaks about mid-luteal phase and then drops off. So it's at that point when your hormones are at their lowest that your period starts. So during your cycle, we actually see testosterone as well. So testosterone gets a slight bump right around ovulation. So the intention of that bump is to increase libido, because the body's priority is getting pregnant. It might not be your priority, but it is the body's priority. So it's going to kick up messages to essentially increase your libido, and in the hopes that you get pregnant. So that is kind of a basic understanding of kind of the main players in your cycle. The follicular phase is day 1 through 14. So day 1 is the first day of your period bleed. Day 14 into 15 is where we consider ovulation to occur. So If you were to be tracking your cycle, we see a slight increase in body temperature. So basal body temperature actually increases at ovulation. So there's a drop off and then a spike in temperature, and it actually stays higher throughout the duration of the luteal phase and then drops off for your period. Now, during the luteal phase, that is day 15 through 28. If we're assuming a 28-day cycle, that is what they assume to be the average length of a cycle. But an ovulatory cycle can be as few as 21 days and as long as 42 days. All right, so follicular phase. So follicular phase is day 1 through 14 of your cycle. So I like to remember the follicular phase as the first phase of your cycle. Day 1 is the first day of your period bleed. Day 14 is ovulation, or that ovulation transition into the luteal phase. Hormones are at their lowest point when a woman's period starts. She may experience some rollover inflammation from the luteal phase, and we'll talk more about inflammation and how that's triggered when we talk about the luteal phase. But those kind of more lethargic, less motivated feelings from that last week of your cycle can roll into that beginning part of your cycle due to kind of rollover inflammation from the luteal phase. So this can cause worsened PMS symptoms. Estrogen rises throughout the follicular phase, peaking at ovulation. We see a slight bump of testosterone right before ovulation. During the luteal phase, so we assume the luteal phase to be day 15 through 28. Now, I like to remember the luteal phase as the last phase. Ovulation is assumed to be around day 14, 15. Day 28 is the day before a woman's period starts, if we're assuming a 28-day cycle. And she transitions back into the follicular phase, being day 1. Estrogen drops and then has a slightly lesser rise during the luteal phase. Progesterone is the star hormone for this phase. So progesterone will rise and then peak about mid-luteal phase and then drop off, leading to the end of the cycle. So it's that drop off of progesterone that triggers an inflammatory response. So estrogen. Let's talk about estrogen for a second. So estrogen is produced primarily by the ovaries, but also produced in fat cells and by the adrenals. It is an integral part of the endocrine system. The endocrine system produces hormones that regulate metabolism, growth and development, tissue function, sexual function, reproduction, sleep, and mood, among other things. It's during the follicular phase that estrogen rises and peaks at ovulation. Estrogen is like a woman's superwoman hormone. Increasing levels of estrogen are associated with increased release of feel-good hormones, serotonin and dopamine. It also helps to reduce inflammation and creates more glowing skin. Things just feel good during this part of the cycle. Higher energy, better mood, better recovery, and better blood sugar stability. Progesterone has an effect on the respiratory system. In women, progesterone is mainly produced due to ovulation and in less amounts by the adrenal glands. If a woman does not ovulate, she basically doesn't get progesterone. So if a woman is on birth control pills, birth control keeps a woman from ovulating. So she does not receive the valuable progesterone that she should naturally receive. And even if there is a synthetic hormone, so progestin is generally the synthetic hormone that's used in place of progesterone, it actually has some of the opposite effects that progesterone has. So it is important to ovulate. It is important for hormone balance to get progesterone. During menopause, the adrenal glands become the main producers of progesterone. So healthy levels of progesterone act as a natural antidepressant. It contributes to restful night's sleep and allows the body to use fat as an energy source. So you can see if it's contributing all these valuable things, if we're not getting it, and if the synthetic version of it can have some of the opposite effects, that could actually be very negative for women. Progesterone is a precursor to GABA, which produces a calming effect on the brain. This can help with feelings of anxiety, stress, and fear. Progesterone counters estrogen. So where estrogen brought up serotonin and dopamine levels, progesterone will bring it down. So progesterone has an effect on the respiratory system and can cause a higher respiratory rate and resting heart rate during the luteal phase. So this is another kind of indicator. So I use the Oura Ring to kind of track my monthly fluctuations. So I see when my temperature changes. I see that my respiratory rate and my resting heart rate will sit higher during my luteal phase. So those are other indicators that I did ovulate and I do have an ovulatory cycle. If a woman is sensitive to progesterone, she may even experience trouble catching her breath or feel shortness of breath. Progesterone drops off mid-luteal phase, triggering an inflammatory response. During this time in a woman's cycle, her body's priorities turn inward, so her immune system actually downregulates. Inflammation is slightly higher and recovery is slower. This change in progesterone triggers a change in sodium set point, which can cause water retention and actually change blood plasma volume and the amount of oxygen that can be carried to the muscles for activity. So when women feel like they suddenly get weaker or like less motivated or like workouts just feel harder, a lot of that has to do with the amount of oxygen that's available. Testosterone. So testosterone gets a little bump right before ovulation. Testosterone in combination with estrogen creates a great environment for muscle growth and a higher level of competitiveness. Testosterone generally gets a slight boost during and after workouts. Using strength training and HIIT is a great way to boost testosterone and help to increase muscle mass during this time. Aerobics or prolonged periods of moderate exercise have not been shown to increase testosterone levels and have actually been shown to have a negative effect on them. To ensure the most bang for your buck, use short restorations intervals instead of long duration cardio. Lift heavy weights rather than doing a lot of reps at lightweight, and use compound exercises that recruit more muscles like squats, deadlifts, and presses. All right, so now we're going to move into perimenopause versus menopause. Does anybody have any questions before I move into this in regards to just like general hormones? Anybody, any questions so far? Good so far. All right. I'm going to assume no questions and move on to the next section. All right, so let's talk about perimenopause versus menopause. So the perimenopause transition can begin 8 to 10 years before menopause actually occurs. The ovaries will gradually produce less and less estrogen, usually starts in women in their 40s, but can start in their 30s as well. Perimenopause lasts up until menopause. Menopause is the point when the ovaries stop releasing eggs and ovulation no longer occurs. So perimenopause, or the menopause transition, is broken into 4 phases. So the phase 1 is very early perimenopause, when cycles are still regular. The ovaries will gradually produce less and less estrogen. Phase 2 is early menopause transition, when cycles start to become irregular. Phase 3, late menopause transition, so first cycle of more than 60 days. Phase 4, late menopause, which is 12 months from a woman's final period. And then menopause is then the life phase that begins 1 year after the last period. So during the perimenopause transition, a woman may experience symptoms of decreasing estrogen while still having normal cycles. Then as she transitions into phase 2, cycles will become irregular and she'll start to experience the effects of lower levels of progesterone. Remember, ovulation is the primary source of progesterone. Losing progesterone changes the brain and nervous system's ability to handle stress. This can increase migraine frequency, anxiety, depression, memory loss, and sleep disruptions. Chronic stress can stimulate the sympathetic nervous system, leading to more hot flashes, heavier periods, mood, and sleep issues. It can also worsen insulin resistance, and menopausal weight gain. So as a woman progresses through perimenopause and into menopause, lower estrogen and progesterone can cause metabolic changes and weight gain in the midsection. When estrogen falls, she loses the anabolic or muscle building properties of estradiol, which means a potential loss of muscle mass and decrease in metabolism. She's also losing the anti-inflammatory, metabolism stimulating properties of estrogen and progesterone, which can lead to insulin resistance. Insulin resistance is when someone has chronically elevated insulin levels. Insulin is the hormone that stimulates the cells to take up glucose or energy in the form of carbs. Common causes of inflammation that can be worsened during perimenopause transition are things like alcohol consumption, consuming processed or high sugar foods, lack of sleep, under-recovering digestive or gut health issues, and emotional stress. So during the perimenopause transition, we want to learn to connect with our cycle. So as far as like cycle syncing is concerned, we want to incorporate as much supportive activity through all phases of our lives. So whether it be before, like when we're having our normal cycles, perimenopausal to menopause, like basically working in a cyclical fashion, you will be able to support your hormones long-term and ease your transitions, and also just support your body in maintaining good balanced blood sugar, reducing inflammation, supporting your body with nutrition, seed cycling, which I'll talk more about in one of my other presentations. We can talk about it now, but I will talk more about it at a later point in time. But supporting your body with appropriate activity, self-care is a must, and listening to your body. So here are some things. So follow a cyclical approach to your life, even without a cycle. So reducing inflammation, consuming foods, and practicing activity that help to manage inflammation. So balancing blood sugars, so eating glycemically balanced meals every 2 to 4 hours. So that would be a meal consisting of protein, carbs, fats, and fibers. Supporting your body with nutrition, so avoiding foods that can worsen the effects of insulin resistance and inflammation. Increasing nutrient-dense foods that support hormone production. Seed cycling. So seed cycling is a natural way of just incorporating actual seeds to support the different phases of the cycle. So during the follicular phase, you would incorporate pumpkin seed and flaxseed. And during the luteal phase, you would incorporate sesame seed and sunflower seeds. Don't cut carbs. Carbs are not the enemy. Cycle them appropriately. So generally, I will work to cycle carbs based off of where they are supported in a woman's cycle. Support your body with appropriate activity. So cyclical approach to high intensity versus low intensity training. Self-care, and of course, listening to your body. All right. So what opportunities do these hormones present? So understanding your hormones allows you to fully take advantage of your naturally given superpowers. Knowing your hormones lets you know when the best time to push is and when it's better to pull back and turn your focuses inward or to other tasks. This knowledge allows for you to no longer feel like you're fighting against a current pushing you in the opposite direction. By learning to sync with your cycle, you can not only learn how to cycle your training, nutrition, and hormone support to appropriately align with your body for better results, but achieve better productivity in your life. This knowledge can help you best align with your body during the different times in your cycle and phases of your life. So what if you don't have a cycle? So if you don't have a cycle or have an irregular cycle, you can use the moon cycle to coordinate your changes in nutrition training and hormonal support, as well as life activities. So with the moon cycle, basically the new moon would be your day 1 and the full moon would be your day 15, or that transition. What if you're on birth control? So if you're on birth control, you will not be experiencing the same hormone fluctuations that occur naturally, but you can apply syncing with your cycle to help reestablish nutrients depleted by the pill and support your liver's ability to detox the synthetic hormone used in the pill. The bleed you experience with the pill will be a pill-induced withdrawal bleed. You will not receive the benefits of testosterone and progesterone while on hormonal birth control. If you are on the pill, make sure you're looking to find the root of any problems as to why you were put on the pill in the first place, because those problems will still be there when you come off the pill and may actually be worse. So make sure that you address any previous problems, if it's acne, heavy cycles, and I will talk about period problems in a couple weeks, but make sure to address root problems as to why you went on the pill and reestablish nutrients and support your liver if you are transitioning off the pill. All right, guys, that is it. Any questions? A little mini presentation, you guys.
I have one, Jen.
Yep.
So, and this isn't, well, actually, I have a couple. So
Okay.
I definitely am in that perimenopause phase where things have kind of just been shifting, and I'm a very high stress, high go person, always have been. But I think that one thing that stands out to me is, even like doing some reading myself, is like having anovulatory cycles now, and then like some things that are happening during my cycle that weren't necessarily happening before. And that would be more like spotting around the time of ovulation instead of actually, I think, maybe ovulating. Is what do you have to say about that one piece there?
So generally we see spotting in the middle of the cycle or around ovulation due to progesterone levels. So if you are, you are higher stress, like going, then that will affect your progesterone levels in general. There's something called a progesterone steal that can occur. So basically, like if you kind of tax your cortisol reserves, then your body will actually use progesterone to convert into stress hormones to manage those stressors better. So if that is the case, if you are under high stress, and if you are not ovulating as often, then you are going to have less and less progesterone starting to occur. But as far as spotting is concerned, it's generally tied to progesterone levels.
Okay. And I was thinking that they were lower, and I make my own little herbal supplement. And so I'm thinking I need to make a new batch of it. And I was thinking about bumping up the Vitex in it just to support just a little bit more going into summer.
Yeah.
Because I'll be moving more too.
Or maybe less stress. Maybe some of that too.
Well, I don't know if that's possible. That's probably one thing I would love to see happen, but coaching and working full time it's hard.
I get it.
So my second question is about a client that I have, and I've been working with her for over a year now, but at some point in her early puberty, she had her ovaries removed. So she's been on birth control this whole time. And we talk about it a lot, and like her going through, how it's basically regulating her hormones because her ovaries aren't making any of her hormones for her. What are your thoughts around that? Or just like, do you have any insights? I mean, there's probably a lot more I could tell you about her, but just like that one piece kind of always stands out to me. And I don't know how to like talk to her about, there's no way I can be like, hey, you have to have a regular cycle, because there is no way for her to have a regular cycle.
So I would just support her in processing the synthetic hormones that her body is taking on. So, making sure that you're supporting her liver and supporting reestablishing any nutrients depleted by being on the pill.
Okay.
Because, at that point, they've kind of killed the main source of those hormones. So,
right. And I'm not sure why. I've asked her and she's like, I'm not really sure. I don't remember. And I'm like, how could you not remember?
I know. Yeah. I feel like that would be like a impactful life choice that you would remember as to why you did it.
Or, just knowing her family and some of the history there, like it might not have all been her choice at that point either. So
Okay.
there's a lot of things I think go into that as well. So
Mhm.
do you feel like if someone's on birth control, seed cycling is still something that can be supportive for them as well?
Yes. Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll wait for more information on that one then.
Perfect. Oh, hi, Bella. Yeah. Anybody else? Any questions?
I've been starting to explore all this. So when I look on the internet, like everything I see, it's actually divided into 4 phases,
Yeah.
which it includes the follicular, I can't say it, follicular and the luteal phase.
Yeah.
But
so
it
it's the
includes,
ovulatory and the menstrual phase in it as well.
yeah.
Mhm.
Like how much impact does that have, or is it really good to just focus on the 2 phases? Because I've been trying to figure that piece out. Like,
So start simple in anything you do. So that's why I like to start with just the 2 phases. And then, we can break it into the menstrual, the follicular, the ovulatory, and the luteal. But to start simple and start with 2.
noting that. You're getting to know me.
Perfect. All right. Did you guys learn some things today? Good. Okay, perfect. Anybody with any questions, if you do have questions, please always reach out if there's things that come to you like after the fact and you're like, oh, I should ask this. Well, one, I will be doing these weekly. I'll be doing same time next week for this one. So show up, reach out to me, ask questions. Yeah, and for anyone that watches the replay on this, same goes for you. Show up, reach out, ask questions. And yeah, I just kind of want to turn this into like a month of education and yeah, helping you guys. So hope you enjoyed it. And yeah, as I said, reach out if you have any questions. Otherwise, have a wonderful evening and thanks for showing up. And I will see you guys soon.
Thanks, Jen.
Thanks, Jen.
Yep.